brothers, let me ask you a question that will shake the foundations of your soul. Have you ever loved a woman so much that you forgot yourself? You gave her your time, your tears, your truth. But every time you gave more, she respected you less. The more you bowed, the more she turned away. The more you spoke, the less she listened. And you stood there and confused, broken, asking, "What did I do wrong?" Let me tell you what you did. You fed the beast. You worshipped her ego. And what you feed grows. Her ego became a Goliath. And now it's time for you to pick up the stone. Time to destroy her ego. Not her heart, not her soul, but the idol that stands between you and real love. Because if you don't destroy it, it will destroy you. This is not hatred. This is not revenge. This is a return to divine order. This is about reclaiming your voice. This is about resurrecting your strength. This is about becoming a man again. Stay with me, because before this message is over, you will see with new eyes. You will speak with new boldness. You will walk away with the fire of truth, and no woman's ego will ever have chains on your spirit again. In today's world, relationships have become a battleground. What was once a union of harmony and balance has turned into a tug-of-war for control. And at the center of this quiet war is something more dangerous than we dare to admit: the unchecked ego. It hides behind hashtags, behind polished selfies, behind words like standards and boundaries. But beneath it all is a hardened spirit that refuses to yield, to trust, or to submit to anything greater than itself. When a woman's ego rises unchecked, it becomes an invisible enemy of love. It masquerades as confidence, but it's often just fear dressed up in defiance. It's the wound that learned to survive by controlling, belittling, and always needing to be right. And in that environment, a man who leads with softness gets eaten alive. Now, I'm not talking about dominating a woman. I'm talking about dismantling the false power she thinks she needs to survive. Her ego was built by a society that told her she doesn't need anyone. That vulnerability is weakness. That femininity is slavery. And now she walks into relationships not as a partner, but as a competitor. Every word becomes a test. Every suggestion becomes a threat. Every moment of correction feels like an attack. And you as a man are left walking on eggshells. You try to speak the truth, but you hold back, afraid of the explosion. You try to lead, but you're accused of controlling. You try to love, but it's never enough. And what happens over time? You start shrinking. You start questioning your own strength. You become passive, and in that passivity, you lose yourself. This power struggle is not natural. It is not divine. It is not how love was designed to function. A man and a woman are not enemies. But when a woman's ego becomes her compass, she stops responding to love and starts reacting to pride. She becomes more interested in being right than being righteous. She stops receiving and starts resisting. And the man, he is tempted to either fight back in anger or flee in silence. Both choices leave the relationship shattered. But there is a third path, one that few men are brave enough to take. And that is to destroy the ego before it destroys the connection. Not by arguing, not by yelling, but by refusing to bow to the false throne. By standing in truth even if your voice shakes. By walking in calm authority even if she storms. Because deep down she doesn't want a man she can control. She wants a man she can trust to hold the line. Her soul is crying out for order, even if her ego screams for chaos. She needs the ego broken, not by force, but by unwavering presence. By boundaries that do not bend. By truth that does not tremble. When her ego meets a man who will not be moved, it starts to crumble. And when it crumbles, love can finally begin to breathe again. There is a dangerous confusion in today's relationships, a tragic illusion that who she is and how she acts are always the same thing. But let me tell you the truth. A woman's ego is not her essence. Her ego is not her heart. It's not her soul. It's not the beauty she was born with or the love she is capable of giving. Her ego is the mask, the armor, the defense system she built after years of pain, betrayal, rejection, and false empowerment. It's the loud voice that interrupts, disrespects, and competes. It's the attitude that tries to control every moment. It's not her power, it's her protection. And the tragedy is, most men fall in love with the real her but end up stuck with the mask. You see, she wasn't born with an ego. She was born with wonder, with softness, with a desire to be loved and led with strength. But along the way, life hardened her. Maybe her father failed her. Maybe her heart was broken one too many times. Maybe she watched her mother become bitter and cold and decided, that's what it takes to survive. So she wrapped herself in ego-like armor and made a vow to never be vulnerable again. And now she meets you, not as herself, but as this persona. And if you can't see past it, you'll either fight her or fall for the act, and both are deadly. The first creates war, the second creates worship, and in both cases you lose your authority. A man of strength must see the difference. He must see her behavior and not mistake it for identity. When she talks over you, when she tests you, when she tries to prove she doesn't need you, that's not her essence speaking. That's ego screaming. And if you respond emotionally, she wins. If you try to reason with the mask, the real her never hears you. But if you see the mask and refuse to be moved, if you stand your ground, firm and calm, something deeper in her starts to awaken. That real woman, buried under years of pride and self-protection, begins to stir. Not because you argued, not because you begged, but because you didn't break. Men today are too quick to either submit to the ego or try to fix it. But that's not your role. You're not her therapist, you're not her savior, you are the mirror, you are the presence that refuses to be manipulated. And in that strength, she will either flee or soften. She will either run or return. But make no mistake, the real her is watching. Her essence is watching every move you make, hoping to feel something stronger than her pride. And when she does, the mask starts to fall, not all at once, but piece by piece. And behind it, you will find the woman you were meant to lead, not the ego you were forced to manage. There is no faster way for a man to lose his power than by tolerating disrespect. Not once, not twice, but habitually, silently, passively. Every time you let a sarcastic remark slide, every time you excuse her coldness, her manipulation, her mockery, something inside of you withers. You don't see it immediately, but it's happening. Bit by bit, your fire dims, your confidence erodes, your instincts start to second-guess themselves, and before you know it, you're no longer leading the relationship, you're surviving it. Let me make it plain. When you accept disrespect, you are training her ego to believe it's stronger than your spirit. A woman will always test your edge, not because she wants to destroy you, but because deep down she wants to know you can't be moved. And when you let her talk down to you, interrupt you, question your manhood, and trample your peace without consequence, what you're really saying is, my masculinity has a price. And once she sees that, it's over. She won't say it, but her respect for you dies in that moment. She might stay physically, but emotionally she starts drifting. Because no woman, no matter how loud her ego is, wants to feel more dominant than the man beside her. She doesn't want to rule you, she wants to rest in you. And rest cannot exist where respect is absent. But the world has flipped the script. It tells you to be the bigger person, to keep the peace, to not make it a big deal. And so you shrink. You go silent. You let her get away with behavior that would never fly in any other area of your life. You become the peacemaker at the expense of your power, and she senses it. She feels that you won't walk away, even if she spits fire in your face. She knows you fear losing her more than losing yourself. And the more you tolerate, the more she tests. The more she tests, the more you fall. And when a man falls in spirit, he becomes unrecognizable to himself. Your masculinity is not just in your muscles, your money, or your mouth. It's in your standards. It's in your ability to say, this is not acceptable, not here, not with me, and mean it. Not with anger, but with finality, with quiet strength. When you walk in that kind of authority, you don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to threaten or punish. Your presence does the talking. Your energy commands respect before you say a word. And if she can't respect that, she's not ready for a real man. Period. Every time you choose tolerance over truth, peace over principle, you kill a piece of your masculinity. And when enough pieces die, what remains is a shell of a man. A nice guy, a yes man, a people pleaser with no fire left in his eyes. That is not who you were created to be. That is not what she truly wants. And that is not what this world needs. There's a lie being sold to women today, and many are buying it with their souls. The lie says, you don't need a man. You are the prize. You are the standard. You set the rules, and he better follow them or get left behind. Now, confidence is good. Strength is good. But pride without boundaries, that's poison. And in many relationships, that poison is served with a smile, dressed up as empowerment, and goes unchallenged until it's too late. Feminine pride, when left unchecked, doesn't create strong women. It creates hardened women. Women who cannot apologize, who cannot self-reflect, who cannot receive correction without becoming defensive or cruel. This kind of pride is subtle. At first, it shows up in little things: a refusal to admit wrong, a smug laugh when she crosses the line, an eye roll when a man speaks from conviction. But it grows. Pride feeds on tolerance, and the more you let it pass, the bolder it becomes. Soon her pride is not just about protecting her heart. It becomes the throne from which she judges every man, every moment, every decision. She becomes untouchable, not in strength, but in arrogance. And here's the dangerous part. No one can lead her. Not a man, not a mentor, not even God. Because when a woman is ruled by pride, she's ruled by nothing but her own feelings, and feelings make terrible gods. Now, some men try to love that pride out of her. They try to soften her with kindness, with gifts, with patience. But understand this: you cannot romance pride into humility. You cannot negotiate with a spirit that believes it is never wrong. And you, man of vision, were never meant to orbit around a woman's ego just to keep the peace. Because peace built on submission to pride is not peace. It's imprisonment. And the longer you stay silent, the more you enable it. The more you validate the behavior that is slowly killing your connection, your leadership, and your legacy. A woman without boundaries will test you. Not because she's evil, but because she's looking for something stronger than herself. She doesn't want you to match her attitude. She wants you to rise above it. She wants you to draw the line she's never seen. She wants you to say, "That won't fly here," and mean it, not with threats, but with presence. Because feminine pride cannot thrive in the atmosphere of masculine certainty. It melts in the presence of real order. And when she sees that you will not fold, when she realizes that your love does not mean weakness, that your attention does not mean permission, her pride begins to lose its grip. But if you don't step up, if you let it slide, if you keep waiting for her to change while you walk on eggshells, you are not loving her. You are enabling her downfall. Because pride left unchallenged becomes destruction in disguise. And in the ruins of that destruction, you'll find the remnants of what could have been real love if only someone had the courage to draw the line. There is a spell that many men are under. It doesn't come with potions or chance, it comes with beauty, with attention, with desire. And once it hits, it wraps itself around a man's mind until he loses all sense of direction. He starts to worship her, not with folded hands, but with his time, his money, his silence, his obedience. He treats her like a queen even if she treats him like a peasant. He makes her the sun of his universe, spinning his life around her mood, her validation, her approval. And in doing so, he forgets who he is. He forgets the mission. He forgets the masculine fire he was born to carry. This kind of worship doesn't look like love. It looks like slavery. And too many men are living in emotional bondage, bowing to a woman's ego, confusing her attention with affection, her demands with standards, her drama with depth. They think if they just prove themselves enough, please her enough, provide enough, she'll finally give them the peace they're looking for. But peace doesn't come from worshiping a woman. It comes from walking in truth. And the truth is this: the moment you put her above your purpose, you've already lost both. You were never created to kneel before a woman's pride. You were created to walk beside her with strength, with clarity, with a heart that leads, not one that begs. But the spell is strong and it's seductive. It tells you to keep her happy at all costs, to never upset her, to do whatever it takes to keep her around. And so you start compromising. You tolerate disrespect. You lower your standards. You pretend to be someone you're not, all for the sake of love. But that's not love, it's idolatry. And when you idolize her, you lose your edge. You lose the ability to say no. You lose the power to walk away. And worst of all, you lose her respect. Because deep down, no woman wants to be worshipped. She may enjoy the power at first, but over time it sickens her. She begins to resent the very man who gave her the pedestal. Why? Because she can no longer feel his strength. She can no longer feel his leadership. And if she can't feel your edge, she won't feel your worth. Worship makes you weak in her eyes, even if you give her everything. What she truly desires is not a servant, but a king. A man who leads with vision, who loves her, but never loses himself. Who can walk away not out of spite, but out of principle. Breaking the spell means remembering your value. It means stepping off the emotional roller coaster and anchoring yourself in truth. It means setting boundaries, not just for her, but for yourself. Because when you stop worshiping her, you start commanding respect. When you stop chasing her ego, you start attracting her soul. And that is where real connection begins. There comes a time in every man's life when he must decide who he is going to be, not just in public, but in the private world of his relationships. When the woman he loves becomes difficult, when her ego rises, when disrespect starts to slip into daily life, the temptation is always the same: explode in anger or collapse in silence. But neither of these is the righteous path. Neither of these will restore the balance that's been lost. What's needed is something rare, something sacred, something called principled masculinity. The ability to stand firm without violence, to speak truth without venom, to correct without cruelty, and to reset the dynamic without becoming the enemy. It is not your job to destroy her as a person. It is not your calling to break her spirit or humiliate her pride. Your role is far more powerful than that. Your calling is to destroy the false system, the ego, that has taken control of the relationship and distorted her ability to receive love. Because when a woman's ego is ruling the house, no one is safe. There is no room for intimacy, no room for softness, no room for surrender. And without those things, love cannot breathe. The dynamic becomes a performance, a constant game of control, testing, and emotional manipulation. And the longer it continues, the more both people suffer. Resetting the dynamic begins with you. It begins with a shift in your posture, your tone, your decisions. It's in the way you say enough without yelling, the way you set a boundary without explaining it 10 times, the way you remove your presence, not as punishment, but as protection, for both of you. When you stop rewarding the ego with attention, when you stop trying to prove your worth to a woman who's caught in her own pride, you start bringing the relationship back into divine order. And that order is not about dominance, it's about structure. A woman doesn't want to be your master. Deep down, she wants to feel safe in your leadership. But she will test you first. She will challenge you to see if you mean what you say, if you are who you claim to be. And when you prove you are, not with threats but with unshakable principle, the game ends. The power struggle dies. And what's left is something real. This path is not easy. It requires emotional discipline. It requires spiritual maturity. It requires you to love her soul more than you fear her reactions. But make no mistake, it is the most powerful thing a man can do. Because when you destroy the ego, you give her permission to be soft again, to trust, to relax, to be led. And when she sees that your strength is not for control but for clarity, for love, for order, she will either rise to meet you or fall away. And either way, you will have done what too many men are afraid to do: lead with truth, stand in righteousness, and restore the balance that turns chaos into peace. So now you've heard it all. The power struggle, the false pride, the confusion between love and control, the masks that hide her essence, and the quiet death of masculinity when men tolerate what should never be allowed. You've seen the spell. So many men fall under the worship of ego instead of the pursuit of truth. And you've heard the righteous path, not to harm her, not to crush her spirit, but to destroy the lie that's been ruling the relationship, her ego. Let me tell you something plain and bold. You were not created to shrink. You were not made to tiptoe around chaos just to keep a woman in your life. You are not a peacekeeper. You are a man of order, a man of vision. And sometimes, restoring that order means saying no. It means refusing to bow to her moods, to her manipulation, to her fear disguised as strength. You don't fix this by fighting her. You fix it by standing so firm in who you are that the false version of her has no choice but to fall away. The real her, the soft, wise, intuitive, life-giving woman, is buried beneath layers of ego the world told her she needed. She doesn't need that armor anymore, but she'll never take it off until she feels something stronger than it. That strength, brother, must come from you, not through domination, not through silence, but through unwavering presence, through principle, through the sacred strength to love her soul while confronting her pride. So stand tall, set the standard, speak the truth without shaking, be the calm in her storm, the line that doesn't bend, the man who would rather walk alone than bow to dysfunction. Because when you destroy her ego, you're not tearing her down, you're clearing the path for the real her to rise. And when she does, that's where love begins. That's the end of the war. That's the beginning of peace. Now walk out of here not just hearing this, but living it.